The Poilievre pivot, how the Conservative leader has changed his message and how he hasn't. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's part pivot, part greatest hits. With a federal election campaign possible in less than a month from now, and with Canadians on edge over what they're hearing from U.S. President Donald Trump, the Conservative Party held a campaign-style rally in Ottawa on Saturday, dubbed the Canada First Rally, with attendees decked out in red and white Canadian flags all over the place. And they came to hear from the leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, with polls showing the Conservatives have been losing ground to the Liberals. With the Maple Leaf on full display, Poilievre spent some of his time speaking about the Trump threat.
We will make sure that Americans know that they will be paying the tariffs they impose on us. I will send the clear message so that everyone in key American states understands that they will pay the price for the decisions to punish our country. Refinery workers, home builders, automakers, and others will need to know that their jobs depend on the goods we sell them, and that tariffing those goods will lower their wages and threaten their jobs.
Poilievre would go on to say that a tariff war with the Americans will make both Canadians and Americans less safe.
As Winston Churchill said, though, you can always count on the Americans to do the right thing after exhausting all other possibilities. So let me spell out the possibilities for our American friends and speak directly to them. Option one, you can carry out an unprovoked attack on our economy. Your consumers will pay more and your workers will make less. Gas prices will skyrocket. You will turn a loyal friend into a resentful neighbor, forced to match tariff with tariff and to seek friends everywhere else. Both our economies will weaken, leaving less money for defense and security, and our enemies will grow stronger. Yeah. Option one. Option two, we trade even more, and both our workers make more. Our consumers pay less. The resulting GDP boost allows Canada to further strengthen its border and up our military spending to 2% of GDP faster.
Poilievre then fired up the friendly crowd, saying Canadians will make any sacrifice for their country.
We love our country and our flag. We are a strong people with a proud history as a warrior nation whose soldiers have proven fierce enough to crush the fascists, the communists, and Al-Qaeda, yet humble enough to never once brag about their heroism. We are mild-mannered and made of steel. So let me be clear. We will never be the 51st state. We will bear any burden and pay any price to protect the sovereignty and independence of our country.
Well, the Poilievre speech was very much about the threats from the U.S. president. That didn't mean he abandoned some of his previous attack lines or that the Liberals were spared.
Liberals would like to instrumentalize the tariff threat to distract from the record of the Carney-Trudeau Liberals over the last 9 years. They say that we should just forget about all the damage they've done to our country because of the tariffs that might be coming down the road. In fact, the opposite is true. Think of it, my friends. If Carney-Trudeau policies did this much economic harm before tariffs, imagine the devastation they would cause after tariffs. We need a prime minister who will put Canada first, our workers, our businesses, our economy, our borders, our military.
While Poilievre was wooing the party faithful in Ottawa, the Liberals were releasing some attack ads on social media, with one claiming Pierre Poilievre sounds a lot like Donald Trump.
Everything is broken.
Everything is broken. fake news.
Fake news.
The left-wing censorship regime.
Their woke censorship ideology.
Defeating the radical left.
Radical leftist authoritarian.
We want those great Canadian truckers to know that we are with them all the way.
I'm proud of the truckers and I stand with them.
Have turned our once great cities into cesspools of bloodshed and crime.
Unleashed a crime wave like we have never seen.
So if it sounds like there could be an election campaign soon, that's because there could be an election campaign soon. A growing number of people think if Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership and becomes the next Prime Minister of Canada, he's going to call an election right away, meaning a federal election campaign could be just weeks away. And that's the assumption the NDP is working under, according to Jagmeet Singh.
I was on a call with all the leaders of opposition and the Prime Minister. I was the only leader to raise the point that we need this support package for workers. In addition, we need to realize that there's also going to be some pressures on the cost of living. So we need better protections in place to keep life affordable. We need those things passed in Parliament. There's 2 months to do that. If the Liberals were serious about doing it, they could have recalled Parliament. We could have got these things passed. But now it's become clear that Mark Carney is going to call a snap election. He's going to call an election before government resumes at the end of May, at the end of March. So we're preparing for that.
The winner of the Liberal leadership race will be announced March 9th. That's just 19 days from today. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, he's back for his weekly analysis on some of the biggest news stories of the day. Professor Ian Lee, all dug out in snowy Ottawa, with us from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. Hello there.
Good afternoon, Rob.
Yeah, it's great to hear from you. So the inflation rate came out this morning. It moved slightly higher. It came in at 1.9%. We were paying more for gasoline and natural gas as well, but whatever we were paying more for, we got at that GST, HST break. So that put downward pressure on some prices. So it's pretty much unchanged as the previous reading, 1.8% in the previous month.
Yeah.
But does it mean
agree.
anything? I guess, in your opinion, what's going to happen to inflation and interest rates if there are tariffs?
Well, that's the much more interesting. I mean, right now, just very quickly, the Bank of Canada is achieving its target, which is 2%. So, it's 1.8, 1.9. It's basically, it's achieved its target. But that's not the real question anymore. We now know they did it. The question is, what's going to happen going forward with the tariffs? I mean, tariffs are inflationary by definition. And I say that by definition because what did they do? They raised the price of goods being imported. I mean, there's no magic or mystery to tariffs, depending on which country imposes them, because I think a lot of people get mixed up over which country is imposing them. If the U.S. imposes tariffs, they're on American consumers, not on Canadian consumers. If the Canadian government imposes retaliatory tariffs, that's on Canadian consumers. I am just astonished at the debates in the last 2 weeks in Canada. People saying, rah, 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 put those retaliatory tariffs on that bad man Donald Trump. No, they're not on Donald Trump. They're on us. The Canadian government cannot enter into the United States and start putting taxes on Americans. They don't. They can't. We put those taxes on Canadians at the border. The CBSA does it. Every Canadian, I'm just amazed people aren't connecting these dots. You come home to Canada, I don't care if you're coming home by plane or by train. You walk up to the gate or you drive up to the gate. And what's the first thing out of the mouth of the CBSA person? Do you have anything to declare? Right. Everybody knows this. Why are people so mystified? And you say, I've got nothing to declare, or, I've got a whole bunch of stuff to declare. Oh, and how much would that be, sir? Because there's duties on some things that you may be declaring. In other words, and those trucks, when they come to the border, they have I forget the technical term anymore, the bill of lading, I think it's called. And it lists everything in that truck, including the value. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be computer chips. It could be Coca-Cola. It doesn't matter. Right, Every truck is required to have that, and they declare it at to the border, and then they have got all kinds of rules and books that tells you here's the tariff on this and this and that, depending on the country of origin. If the product is coming in from the States but it came from China, it's going to get subject to a different tariff, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all very complicated. They're all trained in that.
Right.
So it's going to add push our prices up. The question is, we don't know how far. That's the real question, Rob. We don't yet know. And very quickly, on the interest rates, because a lot of people think that they're going to, if the tariffs go through and really hit us, they're going to cut interest rates to offset that. I'm not so sure. Because you cut the interest rate and the dollar is going to go down even more, and that'll even drive up the cost of imports even more. So that's why I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I just wonder if I'm thinking, what is the mandate of the Bank of Canada?
Yeah.
Right. Price stability. Right. In other words, fighting inflation. And if tariffs are, as you said, inflationary, by definition, they're inflationary, what is that going to mean for interest rates? Does it, does it mean if there's economic weakness, then the Bank of Canada is going to cut interest rates to try and stimulate the economy? Or if inflation starts to move, higher, is it going to maybe be on hold or even raise interest rates to deal with an inflationary environment? It's kind of like a rock in a hard place, isn't it?
Exactly, it is a rock in a hard place. Yeah. And so your listeners don't think I'm just idly speculating. There is lots and lots of case studies, real, hard, real world, not ivory tower, not theory, of countries that have had exchange crises. Argentina had one in the late 1990s, the Argentine peso crisis, and it was catastrophic, because the peso dropped, I think it was 80%. Well, you take any currency, I don't care what currency you're talking about. This is arithmetic, everybody. If your currency goes down 80%, that means all your imported goods are going up through the roof. And what happened was a lot of people literally couldn't even buy their groceries, and there were food riots because of that. I'm not suggesting the Canadian dollar is going to go down 80%. What I'm trying to say is that when a currency declines precipitously in past countries around the world, and I don't mean 500 years ago. How about in the last 5 or 10 or 15 years? What do central banks do to protect or try to save the currency, to stabilize the currency? They drive interest rates up, not down, up. The Russian central bank, as we speak, has driven the central bank rate to 23%. Why? Because they hate Russians? Of course not. They've done it to try to save the ruble, which has collapsed. It's just collapsed. And so what they've done is they've driven the central bank up to stabilize the ruble. That's what I'm arguing. And this happened, by the way, just in the last 6 months. So this isn't ancient history. Yeah. So what I'm saying is if the government, the Bank of Canada, is confronted with a situation where the Canadian dollar starts to drop precipitously, which I think it will, they may may have no choice but to drive interest rates up, not down.
Okay.
Because
I will just say this, our dollar did sell off at the end of January, and you remember it dipped below 69 cents US, about 68 to 80 or so, but it has rebounded now. It's back up to a whopping, today it's 70 and a half. It's still above 70 cents.
Because the markets are saying, they could be wrong. I'm not trying to say that they're definitively always the truth. I'm just saying that it's the consensus of smart people with lots of money. They think that the tariff threat has declined. Doesn't mean it's gone away, but that's what they're saying. But if the tariffs are put on extensive numbers of goods, the Canadian dollar is going to go back down. Let there be no mistake about it. Okay. It's going to go back down.
Okay. We'll be right back. I want to ask you about Doug Ford as an economic manager. I mean, he's in charge of Ontario's economy, 40% of the Canadian economy. He's running for re-election, expected to win. But what's his economic record? We'll ask Professor Ian Lee when we come back. Here on Now You Know, I'm Rob Snow, and this is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
We're back with Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School at Carleton University. Let's talk a little bit about Ontario politics. This sleeper of an election will finally conclude a week from Thursday. It appears to be Doug Ford's to lose. His PCs, and you and I did a lot of radio shows about it at the time. They defeated a big spending liberal government with all kinds of crazy ideas, a lot of it having to do with green energy. But it turns out Doug Ford's been even a bigger spender than the previous Liberal government. He's run big deficits, doesn't have an enviable record on housing construction, made pretty big bets on EVs. This is 40% of the Canadian economy is on Ontario.
Yes, it is.
How would you describe Doug Ford's handling of the Ontario economy?
It hasn't been stellar. I completely agree with you. And I have thought about this quite a bit. And it reminds me of a debate I've had over the last several years with various people, some academics, some non-academics, about, and I'm not changing the subject, bear with me, about the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. And there's people who write me and say, don't you understand, Ian? They've got these huge fiscal deficits in Washington. They do, by the way. Huge deficits. And they've got trade deficits with the rest of the world. Trump reminds us every day. How is it possible that the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency? It's going to collapse and they're going to go somewhere else. And then how come they haven't gone? And I said, listen, it's because the U.S. economy is the least dirty shirt.
Okay.
Yes, the U.S. economy has dirt on its clothing. It's a dirty shirt because of their fiscal deficits in Washington, their current spending, and their trade deficits separately.
Right.
Well,
so to reel this in, Doug Ford's wearing a dirty shirt?
He's wearing a dirty shirt. It's just that the other shirts are even dirtier. People, the perception of the voters, not me, I'm not talking about me, the perception of the voters is, yeah, Doug Ford's doing these things, but, the Liberals and the NDP would be even worse. They'd be spending more. They'd be doing more green things and more bike paths. He's been very astute, this is where I think the opposition and the pundits and the academics completely miss it on the issues that they are most critical of. The corner stores. They don't realize how incredibly popular that is with ordinary people, including me, by the way.
Yeah.
The elites say, we got to keep the LCBO. We got to save the LCBO. Most people hate the LCBO. Okay, that's number one. Number two, whenever he says about bike paths, we're going to get rid of them, and you can just hear people wincing and groaning and making faces and grimacing. Okay, they don't realize that is hugely popular with ordinary people, and the proof of that is, I say this all the time. You and I talked about this a few years ago. Go down the street. I don't care. Spring, summer, fall, winter. I don't care what time of the day. Millions of cars on the road. How many bikes are on the road? A couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 if you're lucky. Okay, so my point is the silent majority won't speak up and say what I just said. But when he did those two things, that cemented, I think, in the heads of millions of ordinary Ontarians when he did his thing about the corner store for selling wine and beer and the bike paths. He's obviously against bike paths. That just, I think that clinched his majority victory. That's what I think.
All right. You think it's going to be an early night on Thursday next week, right? Do you think it'll be an early night?
He's going to win, whether he wins by 20, he's going to win a very large majority because he has captured the zeitgeist. He's captured the mood, not the room, he's captured the mood of the province.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, good
to hear from you today. We'll speak soon. Bye-bye. Yeah. Professor Ian Lee from the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University in Ottawa. The Newsday panel coming up next here on News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio, the Newsday panel.
Yes, it is time for our Newsday panel. After the Family Day long weekend in Ontario, welcoming back Tim Powers, Chair of Summa Strategies and Managing Director at Abacus Data. How are you, Tim Powers?
I am good. How are you, Rob?
That's good. I'm sick of the snow, I can tell you that. I'm done.
Oh, come on. We can handle it a little bit longer.
No, I don't think so. If I see pity if I see a groundhog. That's all I can say. Okay, Alex Creston, Vice President Crestview Strategy in Toronto. How are things in Toronto?
Things are good. A little bit of
good.
Snow, but nothing we can't handle.
Okay, well, that's good. It's only going to take, I was reading today, could take 3 weeks to clear it all out. 3 weeks, 50 centimeters of snow, 3 weeks. But it is Toronto.
It's the city of Toronto. It's the city of Toronto.
Now, meantime, in Ottawa, downtown Ottawa Convention Center, the Conservative Party had their big rally over the weekend, the Canada First rally. Alex, what would you say were the main themes from Poilievre's Canada First message? What did he have to say?
This is really a chance for Poilievre to demonstrate sort of the positive vision that he has for the country and the action he'll take in the role of prime minister here. Talking about trade, about Canadian identity, and about national defense, and those really kind of giving Canadians and a lot of people who have viewed this on the internet or viewed it live or viewed it afterwards, a really clear idea of the kind of prime minister he'll be.
Okay, what would you say are the major themes of Canada of Poilievre's Canada First messaging, Tim?
Well, a lot like I'd say there's some borrowing from Harper there, which is a good thing in this circumstance. Reasserting the notion that you're proud to be Canadian sovereignty and the like. You remember when Harper was first elected, it was all about Canada's new government. So I think he's bringing comfort to people who are used to that particular message. I think you saw a bit of diversity of messaging while staying focused on the affordability issues and carbon tax. Talking about issues that are more contemporary right now, dealing with Trump and what Canada needs to do and how we look forward. All of that seemed to make sense, and I think he did as well of a job as he could doing that the other night.
Okay, how would you say Poilievre's pitch on a theme like Canada First? How would you say, Tim, that it maybe differs from the other party leaders, or are they all singing from the same hymn book? What would you say?
Well, what I found the pitch is more Pierre-esque. So statues. Okay. He talked in the speech about bringing back the John A. statues and things like that. Being proud of some of our history, even when it is contentious and arguably problematic. Being proud to be Canadian, being assertive about being Canadian. I think he's more direct in that language than other leaders have been who, in this milieu, are a bit more cautious about things.
Okay. What would you say? How would you say the Poilievre message differs from, say, I don't know, a Carney message or a Freeland message or a message that you would hear from Jagmeet Singh? What would you say, Alex?
As someone who is a sort of a Canadian history nerd, it was sort of a speech that I've longed to hear someone give for decades. I've never seen a politician give a speech, particularly towards the end. There was a little bit about, do you think it was easy for this achievement or that achievement, invoking Canadian heroes, not just John A. Macdonald, but Terry Fox. Really vivid imagery, and we don't do that very well as Canadians. And it's not because we don't have those things to celebrate. It's because because so many politicians are timid about celebrating anything. So as Tim said, there's a pride in nation there, and it was really refreshing to see.
Okay, so it's been described as a pivot. That this is a major pivot from the Conservatives away from axe the tax, build the homes, stop the crime, fix the budget, that they've had to pivot because there's a new political reality. How fair is it to describe it that way, Tim Powers?
I don't, who cares would be my answer if he said to move a little bit one way or another. I mean, in politics, you're always pivoting to address what pops up in the day. I don't know if it's a major pivot, a minor pivot. It's a very Ottawa conversation. I don't think in your island of Cape Breton or mine of Newfoundland, they're fussed about pivots as they are about, what does it mean to me?
What does it mean to me? Okay, all right. Is that how you see it, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely.
That it's a bubble thing? It's a bubble thing?
LL Cool J, don't call it a comeback. Who cares? This is this is meeting the moment.
Meeting the moment. What do you mean, meeting the moment?
Meeting the moment. If any of the dialogue is different here, it's because we certainly have there's been changes in the political atmosphere, not anything that's happened in this country. But meeting the moment in terms of meeting Canadians, it's somewhat annoying and refreshing at the same time to see people jump on the Canadian nationalism bandwagon. Nice to see people come around. But this is a very natural place for Pierre and a very natural place for the Conservatives to be right now.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the Conservative messaging machine. They've got a lot of money to spend on attack ads, and they've been giving us a taste. We'll play some of those when we come back. I'm Rob Snow. It's our Newsday panel. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
You have questions.
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers
on News Radio.
By the way, it's budget day in Nova Scotia today. And the Houston government has just announced as part of the budget, they will be getting rid of the tolls on the bridges between Halifax and Dartmouth. That was an election promise, the McDonald and McKay bridges. So there you go. Retail politics. Save you a loony. We'll see what it does for traffic, which is getting worse and worse in the capital of Nova Scotia. I'm here. It's our Newsday panel, along with Tim Powers, Chair of Summa Strategies, Managing Director at Abacus Data, and Alex Creston, Vice President at Crestview Strategy, based out of Toronto. So, ahead of the Saturday rally, the Canada First rally that the Conservatives had in Ottawa, they released a new ad. It's all about Mark Carney, the person who appears to be the front runner in the Liberal leadership race. Let's listen to that attack ad. Let's listen to that.
Trump wants our jobs.
We're going to take other countries' jobs.
And Mark Carney is just the man to help him. Trudeau and Carney sold out Canada with job-killing taxes that push jobs south. He opposed Canadian pipelines while profiting off U.S. coal. Carney even moved his company's headquarters to New York, just as Trump wanted.
You're sneaky.
Carbon tax Carney. If Carney wins, Canada loses.
Yeah, they're using that line all the time. He's sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. But how effective have the Conservative been at trying to define Mark Carney before he has a chance to define himself? What would you say, Alex?
I think they're getting there. This is just the beginning of that. But I think that there's trying to continue to tie him to the former government. Don't let him weasel out of his support for the carbon tax. But I think that ultimately the test here and what the Harper government was great at doing to successive Liberal leaders was using their best strengths against them. So even when they act in their own favor, they end up doing themselves damage. And that's what they've got to find a way here to really foist them on his own petard.
Tim, what do you think?
Rob, don't you miss soldiers in the street with guns? I mean, you and I had so much
streets. We did not make
so
this
much
up.
Fun with it. No, we didn't. They didn't make that up. I'm kind of with Alex. Like, they're in the early days of this, and makes sense. They're in the early days of this. The buy is big. I was watching the Canada-Finland game yesterday, and it wasn't. I think that ad, the one you played, was there, as well as the "Oh Canada" ad, if I can describe it that, with Pierre Poilievre and the flag and his family and all of that. Lots of eyeballs for those games, as we know. So, but it does signal as well. I think, as most everybody is, Carney is likely the front runner, likely going to win this thing. And as we saw in the past, though, it usually takes a few months for this stuff to set in. They've got a shorter time frame, so maybe they up the ad buy for the penetration effect that they're hoping to get.
Like, isn't that part of the issue for the Conservative war room? It could be an election in 3 weeks from now. How much money are they going to be able to spend, really, of that massive war chest that they have?
Well, they seem to have more money than Elon Musk. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut Alex off. They have more money than Elon Musk and are saner than Elon Musk. So they'll spend a lot, I suspect. I don't think money will be the issue. The duration of the buy and the amount of time that it usually takes to have impact could be the issue. Sorry, Alex.
Yeah, Alex.
No, and I think the digital side will be important on this too. Like, certainly that kind of live sports and appointment viewing is the kind of thing that we always look to see, are they paying for the TV ads? But really, where Poilievre has made his mark to date has been online, and I think that's where people will continue to see those ads. I know my kids see them before their mindless YouTube videos. So at least they're getting some positive content.
Right. How effective a counter is it for Mark Carney to say, look, it was a Conservative who made me the governor of the Bank of Canada, and Stephen Harper actually wanted to make me the finance minister? Can he blunt these attacks with material like that, Tim? What do you think?
Oh, well, I think he's going to try, and he's got some he's got some support. I mean, when this all started last week, he did have conservative, well-respected conservatives, some who you know and I know, like Chisholm Poitier, saying, yeah, Mark Carney played a key role. So I suspect they'll clip some of that and turn that into an ad or proof points. But you also have quotes from Jim Flaherty saying he was invaluable. So, if I'm the Conservatives, I'm a little bit more careful about this one, given that there's a lot of information out there from well-regarded Conservative figures who would say that Mark Carney was helpful.
What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, look, there's certainly things that they can do in that regard, but that the more they have sort of arch conservatives helping, saying how great he is, maybe they lose a little bit of support on the left. It's a difficult balancing act that he's got to perform, both ideologically, but also to try and distance himself now from the former Conservative government and the former Liberal government. If he wants to be all things to all people, it's a pretty difficult sort of line to walk.
Okay. Well, you know what would really beat the winter blues? An election campaign. An election campaign would cheer me right up. It would be so exciting. Something new to cover every day. And we'll talk about election timing when we come back. And this idea that if it is Mark Carney in the end, March 9th, and they announce the winner, and it's Mark Carney, Liberal leader, Prime Minister of Canada, what's his next move? We'll ask our panelists when we come back here on News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
Here with Tim Powers, Alex Creston. It's our Newsday panel on a Tuesday, and there seems to be a growing belief that if Mark Carney wins the Liberal leadership, he's going to call an election right away. What would be the advantages for Mark Carney of such a move if he is the new Liberal leader? Alex, what would you say?
Yeah, especially if he gets a bit of a bump here. So he's already getting a bit of a bump from leading in the polls. If he continues to skate to leadership, then he will have a bump out of that win, and it makes sense to get out as soon as possible in that case, especially if it's showing him sort of tied or leading in the national polls. That'll be the best time for him, rather than wade into a messy, long drawn out situation, appointing a new cabinet and losing on a throne speech or a budget.
Right. So he'll have the big mo then, Alex, right?
The momentum. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is that how you see it, Tim?
Yeah, define yourself before you are defined. It goes back to our last conversation. The sooner he can get out there, that he can jump on the train, set the agenda. I mean, to their credit, they are seizing some of the circumstances, right, that are before them, that Trump is giving them, and Carney's trying to run with that. And if you're Carney, you run with that as far as you can before you get knocked back on your backside. So it makes sense that they would go early. Do you see or foresee any risks to Mark Carney
coming with these two Liberal leadership debates? I mean, are we all getting ahead of ourselves here? Could these debates, I don't know, knock him off his game or provide an opportunity for one of his opponents like Chrystia Freeland or Karina Gould or the other ones? Alex?
Yeah, so far no one's really challenged him within the party, and I think that's part of why he's doing so well. So I think, but it seems as though the Chrystia Freeland campaign is just going to give him a walk here. They're just throwing balls and not touching the strike zone. I think it looks like they're going to walk the batter.
I mean, somebody described it last week as a genteel leadership race. Would you agree with that assessment, Alex? It's been genteel so far.
Well, it seems like they're either going through the motions for a coronation, or that they've simply realized they don't have a chance to win, and so aren't going to damage the brand.
Right. They don't want to give the Conservatives any material. Like, we didn't get it done. Remember that, Tim? We didn't get it done. Right? We didn't get it done.
It's difficult to make priorities. Don't forget that one either.
Yeah. So, maybe a lesson learned from them. But do you see
when you're the ambassador of Canada to Germany? Then you can make priorities. Yeah, look, they don't want to do anything to upset the apple cart. Mark Carney may be the only hope that they have. I think it's becoming clear that most Liberals are thinking that. And I think Freeland won some plaudits, but equally, not a lot of fans internally when she did what she did to Justin Trudeau, which got round praise outside the Liberal circles. So I'd be very surprised if she did a Tkachuk brothers on Mark Carney when the game kicks off on Monday night.
We're not going to have 3 fights in 9 seconds?
Well, I'd be shocked if we did, but it'd make for a much better debate.
I would tune in. Okay. It won't get the same ratings as Thursday night's game, but it would be worth watching nonetheless. Okay. Great to hear from you. Thank you.
Take care, guys. Bye, Alex.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, Alex Creston is Vice President Crestview Strategies in Toronto today. Tim Powers is Chair of Summa Strategies in Ottawa. I'm Rob Snow. Talkback. We're back. Making your calls on some interesting issues today. We're going to talk about the weather today. Winter weather everywhere. Let's talk about that right after the news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
And welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today's topic, the weather. The weather and winter weather. And here's what we want to know from you, our good listeners. In your lifetime, would you say the winter weather has changed? In your lifetime, would you say the winter weather has changed? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. What would you say? What would you say? Would you say, you know what? Yes, winters are different now than they used to be when I was younger. They're shorter, they're more mild, there's not as much snow. Or would you say, no, you know what? They're about the same as they've always been around here and really don't notice much of a difference at all. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. We want to talk about the winter weather. And the reason we want to talk about the winter weather is, first of all, Canadians love talking about the weather. I love talking about the weather. I'm kind of a weather junkie. I had 3 different weather apps on my phone. And in addition to that, wherever I've gone in the last week or so, most of the conversations that I've had with people start with, oh, how about this weather? Because in this part of the country, where me and David are, Eastern Ontario, Western Quebec, we are having, let me tell you, we are having an old-fashioned Canadian winter, my friends. Lots of cold weather, brutally cold weather, and too much snow. Lots and lots of snow. Our listeners down Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Southern Ontario, I mean, they have had their fill of winter as well. Lots of snow, lots of blowing snow. Schools in some part of that region have been closed. School buses canceled. It's been a lot colder than normal. In parts of Atlantic Canada, they've had their own taste of winter's wrath with snow and freezing rain and high winds and power outages. And Western Canada, Western Canada is in the deep freeze. I mean, everything from, you look at the map, I looked at the national weather map today from Environment Canada. It's like everything from Calgary north to Uranium City, Fort Smith south to Taber, all of the province of Saskatchewan, much of Manitoba, including Winnipeg. There are extreme cold warnings in effect. And I mean extreme cold. I mean, wind chills in the minus 40s. If you're lucky in Calgary today, the daytime high might be minus 19 as a daytime high. But what we really want to know is this kind of winter weather becoming more of an exception instead of the norm? What would you say? What would you say in your lifetime, over the course of your lifetime, in your own, as they say, your own lived experience? Has the winter weather changed? Have winters become more tame, if you will, more mild, warmer, not as much snow as you remember? Or are winters now much like you remember them being for most of your life, with lots of cold weather and lots of snow? Have you noticed any changes at all in the weather during the winter months? 1-833-668-2577. We have lines available right now. Another reason we wanted to bring this up is because of what Environment Canada has been saying in recent years about our winter weather. In a note that it published a few years ago, it repeated it for several years. Environment Canada said of Canadian winters, and I'm just quoting here right from Environment Canada, while Canada is still the snowiest country, less snow is falling across the south. White Christmases are less frequent and less white. Frost-free days are increasing, and our growing season is longer. And we want to know, has that been your experiences? Has that been your experience? During the winter, do you think there's less snow than there used to be? Are white Christmases less frequent than you recall them being? Are there fewer frost-free days? Has the growing season grown longer? We love to talk about weather in this country and in the news business. We love to report on the weather news. Sometimes the news media in this country has been accused of overhyping the winter weather because inclement weather is good for the news business. We love reporting on the weather in the news business, and the wilder the weather, the better. But I'll tell you what, it is the middle of February, and no matter where you look, Canadians are in winter's unmerciful grip. So what would you say about your experiences, past and present, with winter weather? Has the winter changed over the course of your lifetime? Again, our call-in line, 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. And if you are a first-time caller, just mention that to our call screener, and we'll make your call a priority. It's great to be back with you. It's the Tuesday Talkback, and we want to talk about one of Canada's favorite topics, the weather. So join the conversation. We'd love to hear from you today. I'm Rob Snow. This is Talkback. It's News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The weather. Let's talk about the weather. Winter weather. We are asking, has winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? Well, what would you say? Our winters, when you think about it, over the years? Are winters becoming more mild now with less snow, or are winters about the same as you always remember them being? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577. Derek is a first-time caller in Calgary and is on the air now. Hello, Derek.
Hey, Rob. How's it going today?
Oh, I'm okay, Derek. I'm okay. How about you?
Good,
Staying warm?
Freezing.
Yeah,
just
it's freezing there. Yeah. Mine is 25 in Calgary right now. My goodness gracious.
It is.
Yeah.
And I work outside, so I've been out in it, so I've experienced it. Yeah.
What do you do outside in this weather? What are you doing for work?
So we do snow removal full time, and then we also do grocery delivery for seniors.
Okay. Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah. Okay. All right. So would you say, when you think about all the winters that you've experienced in your life, are you noticing a change in the winter weather?
I definitely am. Yeah.
You are.
I've been in Calgary my entire life. I remember growing up as a kid, we had way bigger snowstorms than we're getting now. So the amount of snow we're getting, temperature maybe not so much, but I used to be able to go out my front door and jump into a huge pile of snow. Now I'm lucky to do that, maybe once or twice a year. It almost seems like you guys are getting it further out east, and we're not getting it as much over here. So
I could send you some.
It's definitely become more wild. Please. I mean, hey, please. Snow removal makes me money, so it's white gold to me.
Well, I'll tell you, in this part of the country, it's not so much getting the snow out of the driveway. Now, there's been so much, it's about getting the snow off the roof. I mean, that's the big thing now is, I've seen a bunch of videos. I don't necessarily follow the weather as much, but I watch the national news, and I've seen the stuff you guys do out there, and it's ridiculous. What you guys are getting now, it's almost kind of what I experienced when I was younger. But do you have a lot of snow on the ground there in Calgary?
We've got a couple inches.
Right.
Maybe three inches or so, depending on the part of the city you're into. Right? So again, we get the Chinooks and whatnot, so it's pretty decent. Yeah. But it differs.
So would you say this winter has been kind of an average winter, or a little more wintry than normal, or?
I would almost say this winter specifically has been a bit more wintry than normal. Last winter we were super lucky. In Calgary, we got maybe 2 or 3 big snowstorms that I can remember. It was quite mild last year, but this year is a little bit more wintry than we've experienced last couple of years for sure.
Right, but there's no doubt in your mind you're getting less snow as the years go by.
No doubt in my mind.
No doubt in my mind. All right, Derek, you would know you're in the snow removal business.
So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go. Okay, Derek. Thank you. Yeah. Good to hear from you. Let's go to Steve is on the air. Let's go to Steve, also in Calgary today. Hi, Steve.
My favorite Canadian winter story is the playoffs in Montreal, and they get a lot of snow. And a police officer pulls over a ski-doo, and he says, "What the heck do you think you're doing?" And as he pulls his head off, he said, "Oh, Yvonne Cornway. Sure, we'll give you a escort to the Montreal Forum."
Right.
And you could actually look that up.
Okay, all right.
But the thing
I don't know that story.
I think that's one of Yvonne's favorite stories. Okay. Anyways, I think feels like we had more snow when I was a kid in the 70s because I was shorter. And I remember the snowbank just being higher. Right. And then, you get taller and it doesn't seem as forbidding. But here's the thing. In Calgary, we had a very mild winter until recently. It's going to be +9 on the weekend, which means a lot of water pipes are going to break. So my advice to Calgarians is fill up your bathtub if you don't have water heaters, tanks. I have the waterless tank or whatever it's called. So I don't have I can't draw if the water pipe breaks. But that's the biggest problem. We already had 2 pipes break today. But historically, we have low snowpack in the Rocky Mountains, and BC is hurting. So we need, and March is our snowiest winter, we need a huge dumping in the mountains. We don't need anything in the city, don't get me wrong, but if we don't have that huge dumping, we could have water shortages this spring, or this summer. Anyways, that's why we need to build more canals and reservoirs.
Right. Now, again, I'm going to reference this from time to time. Environment Canada says we're still the snowiest country, but less snow falls in the south. White Christmases are less frequent and less white. frost-free days are increasing. Would you say that's been your experience as the older you get?
Well, according to David Phillips, Canada's chief environmentalist, whatever, we get 100 frost-free days a year. And I think that's true. And frost-free is good, but it's also bad because you got to be able to kill the bugs in the forest. The pine beetle, if you remember, that was one of the biggest factors, is that we didn't have 3 weeks of frozen minus 30, and that's how they flourish. So we definitely need that. But you know what? As climate changes, we need to adapt, not just by driving electric cars. We got to stop building where we shouldn't. Anyways, my thoughts.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Good to hear from you today at 1-833-668-2577. Some lines available there for you. Why don't you grab one as we talk about the winter weather. Has winter changed over the course of your lifetime? Less snow, not as cold. What would you say? Give us a call. Share your opinion. That's why we do Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about the weather today, winter weather, and asking, has the winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? What would you say? Is winter weather more mild now, less snow now, or is winter weather about the same as you can always remember it being? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577. We have 3 lines available. I'm surprised to see that. Let's go to Megan, is in Drumheller. Hello, Megan.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Megan. What would you say, Megan?
Yeah, I would say, I'm not elderly or anything, but
Right.
I've only been in the Drumheller area for about 4 years, but I grew up and lived in Calgary, and I've noticed that, I guess first of all, that when I was a kid, there was very distinct seasons. So there was summer, there was spring, and then there was winter for, several months. And, there was a good accumulation of snow, but there was very distinct seasons. And I've noticed now, I guess I'd say probably in the last 10 years that, in the Calgary area, that there seems to be only 2 seasons, which is winter and summer.
Okay.
So there is no real transition. But with regards to the snow, I would say that there isn't as much. However, there's more where we lack in the amount. When we do have it, it's more of like a dump where we get a lot at once.
It's more intense, right? More intense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, out in the Drumheller area, I'm experiencing winter like I've never experienced it before, but apparently it's normal here where, if say Calgary gets 5-10 centimeters of snow, even if Drumheller is scheduled to get the same amount, it seems to be almost 30 centimeters because there's nowhere for the snow to go. And so it's, I'll have snow drifts up to my waist, opposed to in Calgary, I never, a snow drift was like a centimeter. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
That's what I would say. I mean, I don't remember.
And you would say you've noticed these changes over the course of your life, and you're not that old, right?
Exactly. And I mean, I would say the bitter cold, I don't remember ever being like it is now. It's way more colder than it ever has been, in my opinion.
All right. That's interesting.
And maybe I'm biased because of being in Drumheller, because it's been super, super cold here compared to Calgary. But yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, thank you for calling from Drumheller today. Yeah, good to hear from you, Megan. Let's go to Colin, is in Foothills, Alberta. Hello, Colin.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Colin. What would you say? Would you say the winter weather has changed over the course of your lifetime? That's different now than it used to be?
Not really.
Not really.
I'm
Okay.
in my late 60s, and I don't think it has changed much because back in 1980, I was working outside in Calgary with a T-shirt on. So
really? Okay.
So, like, you know, it's all this here global warming. I mean, yeah, okay, it may be going some, but I mean, we're not the culprit here. It's cutting down all the rainforests and all that other stuff that's creating this here problem. So, you know, it's we're not getting maybe as much snow right now, but we do get snow. You know, different years, depending on what it is, you get more snow.
Right. Yeah. Well, Environment Canada says, you can, I guess they can quantify it that we're getting less snow, especially across the southern parts of Canada. Less snow than we used to. I keep coming back to this. White Christmases less frequent. Frost-free days increasing. Has that been your experience?
Yes, especially
it
here
has
in Calgary.
been? Okay.
Yes, but I mean, we're in an area when we get Chinooks coming through, so it's hard to determine when those Chinooks come through and when they don't. So, but if you take Eastern Canada right now, they're getting hammered with snow.
Oh yeah, tell me about it. I'm living it, sir. Yeah. I'm living it.
Yeah. So I mean, my brother's been out blowing snow in PEI for the last several days.
But you would say, again, over the course of your lifetime, you haven't noticed much change in the winter weather? No. Okay, interesting. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's just interesting that Megan from Drumheller would say yes, and you're in Foothills, and you would say no. And we'll take some more calls right after the news, and we're talking about the weather today.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's talk about the weather. One of our favorite topics here on Now You Know, winter weather. We're asking, over the course of your lifetime, has the winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? What would you say? Are winters more mild now with less snow? Or are winters about the same as they've always been? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577. Let's go to Airdrie. William, first-time caller. William, thank you for being a first-time caller. First of all, thank you. You're on the air. What's your opinion?
Hi, Rob. How's it going?
Oh, we're fine. We had a heck of a long weekend here, William, getting dug out. We've had a lot of snow here, about 70 centimeters in 4 days.
Yeah, I heard about that. I got relatives down east as well. They were telling me about the snow you got. It's really unfortunate, but here up where I am in my neck of the woods, it's been up and down. Like, I mean, January, if you look at January, like where we were, it was really mild. Like, our positive temperatures were like in the 9 degrees, 10 degree range, right? So,
right.
And then all of a sudden, like mid-February, it just came in like all that Arctic air pressure came right down to us. So, I mean, it's hard to say. Like over my lifetime growing up here in Alberta, like I can say like it all depends on the years. But from what I can see, we haven't been getting as much snow like we have in the past. I mean, look at the wildfires that's been happening, and I mean, that's one of the causes of that is because we haven't been getting enough snow, especially up in Jasper, Like, I was there last year with the family, and I mean, when I was going up through the ice glaciers there, taking the highway, I could tell, like, right away, like, this is not good. Like, it was so dry. But at the time, like, in my mind, I wasn't thinking, okay, like, something bad was going to happen. And then when I did hear that happen on the news, unfortunately, it was shocking to me, and I'm like, geez, now that I think about it, I saw like how bad and how dry everything was up there.
Right. So you would say one of the things that you notice over the years is there seems to be less snow.
Less snow in our area. And now I guess that also depends on where you live in Canada, right?
Oh, sure.
But I would say here I've noticed a lot less, and especially the farmers, right? Like the farmers are always complaining because they're not getting enough moisture in the ground, right? So that's one of the other things.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you so much for your call, William. Great to hear from you. and for being a first-time caller, and keep listening and keep calling. Okay, from Airdrie, Alberta to Martins Point, Nova Scotia. Chris, you're on the air. Hello, Chris.
How you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Chris. What would you say has been your experience with winter weather? Have you noticed a change over the course of your lifetime in the winter weather?
Oh yeah, well, I'm 69, so yeah, I've noticed a definite change. Since right even back, I can remember in the early mid 60s, but more so, it seems to be coming. The change is it's ramping up. Like down here this winter, we're getting pasted in the snoot with a lot of freezing rain, ice pellets, that kind of thing. And the last time we've had a winter like this was a decade ago. Was 2015 when we had a winter like this. Other than that, I mean, we don't really even get much winter weather until most winters, not until after the new year. I know quite a few winters where we haven't had a lick of snow until after Christmas. And the one thing I really I do notice, and I think it has something to do, like I'm right on the water. Like I can throw a rock and hit those guys digging that treasure on Oak Island. So the water has a great influence on the weather where I am. And the ocean is warming. Well, that's scientific fact. The ocean's warming. So that warming of the ocean air creates a lot more stronger air currents. I noticed that the winds down here is the thing that's really changed.
How so? A lot stronger now, or
lot stronger, and the frequency is more. Like gale force winds. You always had your windy seasons down here, but it's all year round. Like we can get gale force winds for like 2, 3, 4 days at a time. So the velocity is increasing, and so is the frequency of these winds. And like I said, I believe it's partially due to the warming of the water off the coast. It's creating a lot stronger air, like wind currents.
Right.
As for winter, no, we don't get the winters we used to get. Like you could get snowed in for 3-4 days at a time. You couldn't get out of your house.
Well, I mean, I remember growing up on Cape Breton Island, going out to shovel my mother's car out so she could get to work at the hospital, and seeing nothing but the radio antenna on the car.
Well, yeah. Back in the day, we got some real wall bangers, didn't we? Like, I mean, there was they couldn't even get the snow removal gear out to clear the roads off. So, I don't think we're not, generally speaking, our winters are not like they were, but.
Does it seem to be, and again, this is all just kind of anecdotal. I mean, but would you say it's more mild? Is the winter more mild now than you remember it being?
Normally, yeah. Like I say, we're getting a winter to remember this year, and the last time I saw one of these was 2015, and that's when a lot of people lost the roofs on their buildings because we kept getting the snow, and then we get the freezing rain. And that would ice up on the layer of snow that was on your roof, and then you get another layer of snow, and most people's roofs looked like a parfait. They were just layered up, and just the stress of it all. But like I said, that's been a decade ago since we've gotten one of these, and normally, I'd say the winters are quite a bit milder and less intense than they used to be down here.
All right, Chris, thank you for calling from Martins Point, Nova Scotia. Today we'll go to Cambridge coming up next. Speak with Lorraine. Rick is in Dartmouth. Ryan's in Kitchener. And we have a line for you at 1-833-668-2577. We're just talking about the weather today. Everywhere you look, it's winter. But has winter changed over the course of your lifetime? More mild now, less snow, or not? 1-833-668-2577. Give us a call. Another line available there for you. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
First one of the week for us, and we're talking about the weather, and we're asking, has winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? Lorraine is in Cambridge. Thanks for calling, Lorraine. You're on the air. What would you say? Hi, Lorraine.
I'm a first-time caller, by the way. I forgot to mention that.
I appreciate that.
Anyway,
I appreciate that.
Yes, definitely has. I'm 86 years old, and the last 10 years or so, our weathers have been getting milder, with probably one really good snowfall in late, like February, January, February. This storm that we're having right now, the big dumps like this, would 10, 15 years ago would be a normal thing about once a year. But one thing, and somebody else mentioned this too, is that the very heavy winds, more and more winds. I've noticed that for the last 5 or plus years, a lot more winds. And I think that's global warming, and I don't think that's a good thing because it dries everything up and makes the forest fires business thing worse.
Okay. And that it dries everything out, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So hopefully all this snow now will keep things a little safer for the hot summer.
Well, maybe. Yeah. Now, Lorraine, you say you're in your 80s. I'm just curious. Have you always lived in that part of the country?
Well, I was born in Montreal, and I was there till I was 6. And that's a little heavier snow, more snow up there. But here in southwestern Ontario, and until the last, well, with all these storms that are going around right now, where I am in Cambridge, we've kind of been in this little protected cove, it seems, that we have not had very bad weather at all. And all the storms are all around us, but we got it this time.
Right. So maybe it's your turn in Cambridge.
Yep.
Right.
Yes, it is.
In dodge the bullet. Yeah. Okay. All right. It's snow day for the kids, I guess. So that that's good for them. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a big pile of snow out front, and in back in the day, it would be normal if we drove from here up to Stratford, for instance. There would be normal to drive through a roadway that's with 10, 12 feet cliffs of snow on either side of us. That would be quite normal.
And that's an unusual scene now, you're saying,
now,
right?
Yes, it is.
Now it is. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Well, that's 8 decades of experience speaking. Who am I to argue? Thank you so much for your call, Lorraine. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, 1-833-668-2577. There are 2 lines available there for you now as we ask, has the winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? Lorraine in Cambridge, Ontario saying absolutely. Rick in Dartmouth, what would you say, Rick?
Well, I'm 73, so I can, I've got 7 decades. And I've been paying very close attention for all those years. And I'll tell you, the weather is caused by the uneven heating of the earth by the sun, and the laws of thermodynamics and the rotation of the earth. And these things are big variables. So the way it worked here in my lifetime, is from my parents. I know that the 1930s and 40s were pretty warm. The 1950s were sort of in between. The 60s and 70s were bitterly cold. And then in the 80s, it started warming up again. And in the 2000s, it's just kind of a mishmash. It could be warmer, it could be colder, and we had our biggest snowstorm in recent times in 2004, which was affectionately called a White Juan after the Hurricane Juan was a few months before that. So it was a weather bomb, and it was just a function of a low-pressure system stalling off the coast for 24 hours, and it just churned up, And then the weather, one of your other callers talked about the weather here in Nova Scotia in 2015. And that's exactly what it was. It's kind of what we just had over the last week, which is snow, rain, freezing rain, refreeze over, a couple of times. So that's kind of the worst kind of weather we get. As far as it heating up from, my lifetime, I know it's not as warm as it was, and I know it's not as cold as it was. It's sort of in the middle. And if you remember the 1970s, the predictions of an ice age in North America. So I'm certainly
So you would say over your 7 decades you've kind of seen it all. I'm just wondering if winters now are more mild with less snow. Is that what you would say the recent trend is, Rick?
No, it's random.
No?
It can
Random.
be.
Okay.
Last year was pretty good. This year is terrible. I mean, we jokingly thank the people who predicted that the Maritimes were going to have a mild winter. Okay, thanks. That makes this freezing cold winter we're having with the terrible weather a lot easier to take because a mild winter was predicted.
Right. Because again, and I keep circling back to this statement from Environment Canada that the big picture trend is less snow falling across the south, white Christmases less frequent, more frost-free days, a longer growing season. That's the big picture trend.
The only thing I can say about Environment Canada, they can't predict. They're just terrible. They're just terrible at it. They got 2 or 3 days out, and they're pretty good at that. But after that, they're not. And it reminds me of Upton Sinclair's great quote.
Yeah, but these aren't predictions. I mean, this is with the benefit of hindsight and all the data, right?
Well, yeah, okay. I just, I don't like Environment Canada. I don't like where they've gone.
All right.
And
Okay.
Like I said, the quote I was going to give you is, it's difficult for a man to understand something when his salary prevents him from understanding it. So that's it for me.
All right. Okay, Rick. Thank you, Rick. We'll stop here. Take some more calls. 1-833-668-2577. Join the weather discussion here on the Tuesday Talkback. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Where we've been asking, has the winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? Ryan in Kitchener, what would you say, Ryan?
Hey, how's it going, buddy?
I'm fine, Ryan. What would you say?
Wonderful. I'd say not much has changed.
Not much has
considering
changed.
I don't have as many decades as the past two callers, and much respect to them. I appreciate their point of view. I've been on this earth for 4 decades, and out of those 4 decades, 2 of those decades I've been building backyard hockey rinks. And I would say the only time I had a problem with the backyard hockey rinks would be the last 2 winters. Beyond that, I've always had the ability to build and maintain a rink until about April, give or take. So it makes me have questions, and you should too when it comes to things like, I know we're not talking about carbon tax, but I have questions about that because the research I've done indicates that the Earth is in a cooling period, not a warming period. What are your thoughts?
Well, I can tell you, I can pull up some headlines where there have been predictions about the demise of the backyard hockey rink. As a matter of fact, that the backyard hockey rink would become one of the victims, one of the symbolic victims of a warming Canada, for example.
For sure, I tend to look past the headlines too. I actually had a news company. I think it was someone in the States. They came up to Canada. They did an interview in my backyard. It was one of the years that we couldn't build a rink. So great, they showed the puddles and all that. Yeah, there's been a couple of years, but throughout my whole life as a kid, there's been years where so many great days for snow. As a kid, you love snow, right? You love jumping in it, building fort, snowball fight. Nothing has really changed. In fact, although it's been a while since we had something like this, I'll give you that. I was telling my kids the other day, I'm like, hey, look, when I was a kid, this was almost all the time, right?
Right.
So there is a subtle difference, but I don't believe it has anything to do with the climate change. And when was the last gentleman said something about they predicted an ice age? What was it, in the 70s, I think?
Yeah, global cooling in the 70s. Yeah.
That's what it was. And what did the government do when it was a global cooling? What did the government do to its citizens in Canada?
I don't know. But you did just say though that you told your kids, when I was a kid, that this used to be more common, right, in the winter.
Absolutely, and the reason why I was saying that is because they have snow days for any reason, right? Like they have snow days if it snowed the night before. It's a little more willing to give those snow days. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Let's go to, thank you, Ryan, in Kitchener, to Jason in Calgary. Jason, fit you in before the news here. Jason, go ahead.
Hey, how are you?
I'm fine, Jason. Has the winter weather changed over your lifetime? Like, noticeably changed? More mild, less snow?
I would agree with Environment Canada that there's been a lot less white Christmases here in Calgary. Temperature-wise, though, I think it's been fairly consistent over the last number of years. I've been a Calgarian for 50 years, so I lived through it all.
Right.
The one thing I have noticed is it seems to me that the seasons are shifting by about 3 months. I remember October we'd have snow. Now we don't get it until November, December. So this cold snap we're doing now would have been a perfectly normal November, December cold snap.
Really? Like minus 25 in November in Calgary? Really?
Yeah. To me, I remember Christmases and winters being cold. I remember going to school in long sleeves.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. We've been talking about winter weather and asking, has winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? We have 2 lines available right now, 1-833-668-2577. Brennan in Alberta up next. Hello, Brennan.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm good, Brennan. Thanks for calling. What's your opinion?
I believe it changed quite a bit, actually, from when I was young. I'm 55 now.
Okay. And how so?
2008, 2009, we had about 5 feet of snow where I'm at. And that was it. We never had a winter like that. And when I was young, I'd say probably about 10 years old was the last time I probably saw weather like that. Like, you'd never see a fence post during the winter. You never see them. Now you see them everywhere.
Right.
So, but I don't know. The temperature-wise, I think it seems to be a little bit colder, I think.
Okay.
A little bit more, but yeah, a lot of mild winters since early 80s on. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's from global warming or my theory is we're getting overpopulated in Alberta. That's why.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, I don't know if that has anything. You probably got lots of room there for everybody. I suspect you just need to build a lot more housing, but that's a topic for another day.
Oh, yeah.
But again, I come back to this. The big brains at Environment Canada in Ottawa say the big trend is less snow, especially across the southern parts of Canada. And that, white Christmases are less frequent. There aren't as many days with frost as there used to be, and the growing season for the farmers is growing longer. And I'm just asking people if that's, people, whether they've been on the planet 40 years or 80 years or whatever it is, somewhere in between, whether that's their own experience, if that's what they think is going on. And it sounds like you think that's what's going on, that there's less snow, it's more mild.
But it's more mild, but I wouldn't totally agree with the growing season. I have a quarter that I'm lucky to get. The last how many years I was lucky to get crop out of it.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay.
The growing season may be longer, but it's more drier. Put it that way.
It's drier. Yeah. Drier.
Oh yeah.
Because of less maybe winter snow.
Oh yeah.
Right. We need
that snow to moisturize our ground, make it good enough to grow for.
Yeah, well, it's been very dry, especially across southern Alberta, southern Saskatchewan. I mean, it's basically been drought for a few years there, right? So, Brennan, good to hear from you, Brennan. Thank you for calling and sharing your opinion. Have a great day.
You bet. Have a good one.
Yeah, bye-bye. Cambridge. Rob is in Cambridge. What's your opinion, Rob, on the winter weather and how things have changed, if at all? What would you say? Hello, Rob. Are you there? I believe we lost Rob. That's too bad. I mean, David, for example, here in this part of the country, around your nation's capital, when you think about this time of the year and iconic scenes in Ottawa, your nation's capital, surely to goodness, one of those iconic scenes is the Rideau Canal, right?
Oh, absolutely.
When you see a picture of Ottawa in winter, that's usually the picture you would see, the Rideau Canal, the world's longest skating rink. And I was actually looking it up today because it's actually been a pretty good season for skating on the Rideau Canal this year. And you went skating on the canal, did you not?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. So the canal opened, the Rideau Canal opened for skating January 11th, and here it is, the 18th of February. So 38 days in, David. And with the weather in this part of the country, I don't see the Rideau Canal closing down anytime soon. Right.
It's so funny because a couple years ago it didn't open at all, and then they hadn't opened the full stretch of it. And at one point, the federal environment minister, Mr. Guilbeault, was talking about how this is, an emblem of how climate change,
a warming world,
is going to permanently change how the nation's capital looks, and et cetera, et cetera. The National Capital Commission, who make the ice, now say this is some of the best ice they've ever made. It's like one of the best skating seasons ever.
So the average skating season for the Rideau Canal is about 50 days. The longest season ever, I think they just threw caution to the wind. But the very first year that they opened it up for an official skating season, let's promote this as a tourist thing, was 71, 72, way back when. And they skated for 95 days, Dave, 95 days. But as you say, now in recent history, the canal has become a symbol of a warming Canada. It's become a national symbol of the threat of climate change and how warmer winters are changing Canada. And as you mentioned, the environment minister, Mr. Guilbeault, said at the time, the exact quote, "This is yet another example of how climate change is changing Canada, because 2 years ago, it didn't open at all for the skating season because they said it was too mild and the ice wasn't safe." Even though the year before the canal was open for 51 days and the year after it was open for 35 days. And in 2020, they had one of the longest skating seasons ever. The canal was open for 70 days. It was open well until March. And I remember that. Winter, very cold, lots of snow. But it's been in the news before. The Rideau Canal in Ottawa, very popular tourist attraction, UNESCO World Heritage Site. Winters are getting warmer, winters are getting shorter, and the Rideau Canal is at risk. And it's not just the Rideau Canal, it's all winter sports in Canada are at risk. Outdoor hockey and downhill skiing and cross-country skiing and snowboarding, all at risk because winter has so dramatically changed in Canada. And the winters of our younger days are over. But is that your experience? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577. It's hour number 2 of Talkback. And I'm Rob Snow. More of your calls just ahead. We have 3 lines available there. 1-833-668-2577. Join the discussion and just share your experiences. Share your memories. Be right back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about the weather today. It's winter just about everywhere. Let's go to Scott in Calgary. Hi, Scott.
Yeah, hi. How you doing, Rob?
I'm good, Scott. Would you say the winter weather has changed noticeably over the course of your lifetime? Or winter's more mild now, less snow now, or the same as they've always been? What would you say?
Well, I think it's variable like it's always been. I can remember going to university in the 70s in my T-shirt playing football outside in February, and I can remember it being so darn cold I'm bundled up and walking a mile and just about freezing my arse off. So
right.
I don't think there's a big, but in my mind, And I think that Joe Bow and that politically charged people in general are using it as a bit of a scare tactic to get votes. And I'm a geologist by profession, and I took a lot of this at university, so I've got an opinion.
Right,
and that's all
right.
it is. I think the world's 4.2 billion years old. It's been uninhabitable for most of those years. And right now we're in a bit of a warming trend. And is climate change real? Of course it is. Climate's always changing. It changed from the middle of January to today, for example. So I think we're reading way too much into this whole thing. And people are just trying to scare people into voting the way they want them to vote.
But again, I circle back to this, and this has been the inspiration for a lot of shows that I've done about weather and climate and everything. This is Environment Canada. Environment Canada's words, not mine. I'm quoting Environment Canada word for word. While Canada is still the snowiest country, less snow is falling across the south. White Christmases are less frequent, less white. Frost-free days are increasing, and our growing season is longer. What would you say?
Yeah, and they could be right,
okay.
but they're taking a 50 to 100 year. They've been sampling data for 50 to 100 years, and I think really that's an incomplete sample.
Okay.
And I don't believe in the long run. Like, heck, we just don't have enough data to make these conclusions. That's my opinion, but.
All right, Scott, I thank you for sharing it. I thank you for calling to Kitchener, where they're getting a blast. Let's go to Andre. Hi, Andre.
Good afternoon, Mr. Snow.
Yeah, hi, Andre. What would you say, Andre?
Well, I have to say that when I came in Ontario in 97 to see my nephews, and people were walking in running shoes in the wintertime here, and so it's been a little bit of change. But since I've been here, the person before even said that in 2015 we did get a big snow event. I remember shoveling that. And then since after that, I always take my recycle bin and get snow from my other neighbors so I can make a snow fort for my kids. And it always melts too quick. Okay. And this year I don't even have to do that. I just have to dig through the castle to make one. The reason why I'm calling, Rob, is Loren was right. It's the wind. The wind, even in summertime or wintertime, the wind's nasty. Before I go out, I always ask Google, what's the temperature? And it'll say -7. But now I don't ask that question no more. I ask, what does it feel like out there? And it says -19, right? So that wind is nasty. So that's my big change that I find.
Right, yeah. You're one of several callers who have brought that up, that they think it's, if anything has changed, that it's become windier over time. Okay, that's interesting, Andre. Thank you for your call today. How about, you too, Andre. Stay safe out there. To Calgary again. Laura in Calgary. Hi, Laura.
Hello.
Hi, Laura.
Thank you for listening. Hello. Thank you for listening to me. So listen, I'll just make this real quick. I like to do research, and what I found out was the French astronomers noticed that the Earth had done about 150-inch tilt this last summer. And we usually, as the Earth is revolving through space, doing its orbit, it usually tilts about 1 to 2 inches per year. And this year, it tilted 150 inches, okay? And that's huge. Okay. And then that corroborates with the Inuit elders, who are saying that the sun is no longer in the same position as it has been. And I thought, wow, okay, I wonder if it's due to this tilting. And then all I've noticed in Calgary, I've been here since '67, is that we get a couple of dumps of snow. We get a couple of -40, -30, and now it's less and less, right? Instead of weeks and weeks and weeks, it might be for a week or two. And then we get light skips of snow. So you go out and it's really, really easy to shovel and stuff. There's that. And then in the desert regions, Sudan, Chad, and those places, they're getting rain, they're getting snow, they're getting hail, and they now have rivers. They'll get as much snow in a day that they get in a year, or rain or water. Okay, so the hot, dry places, it seems like, are getting more moisture, and then Canada, thank goodness, because of this tilt, we're getting more warmth. That's okay by me, man. And I do believe that the cars and all that, the gas contributes a little bit to the global warming, but we have to remember climate happens all the time. There's this great big planet. It happened in 2012. It's happening again. It's a different planet. It comes by the Earth once every who knows how many thousands of years.
I don't know anything about the Earth tilting by so many inches, or I don't know anything about that. But I'm just asking, in your own personal experience and all your time on this Earth, would you say the winters are more mild now, less snow now, or are they about the same now? You would say they're more mild with less snow. Yeah,
they're more mild. There's less snow. Yeah, definitely. And I'm 66. I've been around Calgary for a while.
Around.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
All right.
Yeah. And I don't mind that at all.
You don't mind. You don't mind if winter is more mild with less snow. Yeah, you're preaching to the converted there, Laura. On that, you and I agree. Thank you so much for your call. We'll be back right on the phones. We have actually several phone lines available there. 1-833. Wait won't be too long. We'll fit you in lickety-split. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been talking about the weather today, winter weather in particular, as we ask, has winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? What would you say? Are winters more mild now, less snow now, or are winters about the same as they've always been during your lifetime? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577 to Dallas in Cambridge. Hello, Dallas. What's your opinion, Dallas?
How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good, Dallas. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good. Well, I got, as some of your other callers on the line, I've got a few decades under my belt.
Right.
I'm 60 now, and I grew up in a community southeastern Quebec, the very eastern tip of Quebec, for that matter, Gaspé, Quebec.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when we had snow, there was lots of snow.
I bet. Yeah.
And I remember, so the first time I moved to Cambridge, I didn't move to Cambridge. I came up here for a couple of months to stay with my sister, and that was in 82. And the banks that I'm looking at now are still about half of what they were that winter. Now, I came back again in 88, I want to say. And the winters are up and down, up and down, up and down. Last winter, obviously, around here was phenomenal. We had 1 or 2 droppings of snow, and then it would warm up, and everybody thought it was spring again.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just one of those things. I'm a firm believer that everything goes in cycles.
Okay.
And, I pay attention over the years. And one thing my grandfather taught me about winter was in the fall of the year, you look around and you watch for where the squirrels are building their nests. And the higher in the tree that the squirrel's nest is built, the more snow you're going to have.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard that one. Okay.
Well, it always worked out down there, and he was
okay. All right.
Pretty dead on.
Okay.
But this bit of dumping here, the last few years we've been really lucky, I got to say. Around here, we get 10 centimeters, and you listen on the radio, and it's Armageddon, But,
right.
This is normal. This is just what we should expect.
This is what winter used to be, right? This is what winter used to be. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. Thank you. Yeah. So you would say winters are more tame now, that they have changed. They're more tame.
I say, listen, that the last 10 years or so, yes, the winters are a whole lot more tame than they used to be. There's no doubt about that.
All right. Thank you, Dallas. Good to hear from you in Cambridge today. So look, after the news, we'll be in the home stretch. Love to hear from you today. Just talking about the weather, changes that you're experiencing in the weather over the course of your lifetime. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
How's the weather? Hey, we've been talking about the weather today and asking, in your lifetime, would you say winter weather has changed? Would you say yes, winters are different now, more mild, less snow? Winters are different now than they used to be. When I was younger, or would you say, no, about the same? I don't really notice much difference at all. I mean, you look around, it's winter from one part of the country to the other. I mean, in Ontario, it's like an old-fashioned Canadian winter with lots of cold weather. I mean, really cold, and lots of snow. Down in southern Ontario, they're having their fill of winter weather, lots of snow, lots of blowing snow. Schools closed, the whole 9 yards. Atlantic Canada, Western Canada. If you're in Calgary, you're feeling it, right? But it's not just Calgary. It's like north to south, all of Saskatchewan, most of Manitoba, parts of northwestern Ontario. Extreme cold, wind chills in the minus 40s, like a daytime high, maybe minus 19 in Calgary today. But we've been asking, is this kind of winter weather becoming more of an exception instead of a rule? What would you say? Has winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? 1-833-668-2577 to join the discussion. Lots of time to take your call. Let's go to Daryl, is actually calling from chilly Calgary today. Hope you're staying warm, Daryl.
Well, it is a little fresh out, I got to admit that, but having lived in Winnipeg, hey, it's not that bad.
Really?
Just a quick history. I was born in Edmonton. My dad's career took us to Winnipeg in 1963. It took us to Toronto, and I had my first green winter. 9 years old. I couldn't believe it. No snow.
No snow at all. Wow.
I don't know. Okay. Nope. 1970, 71, we had a snowfall in Montreal. That's where his career took us that next. And that record's never been broken. It came close a few years ago, but it's never been broken. I remember skating on the Rideau Canal, and there were winters in the late 70s where you couldn't skate on the Rideau Canal. I came out to Alberta in 1977 for Christmas, and there was no snow out here. Everything was just brown. 88. Who can forget the 88 Olympics when we had all that warm weather and no snow? My point is weather varies. It always has. It always will. Is there a global warming footprint? Honestly, for me, the jury's out on that, because I watched David Suzuki talk about, that we were going to dive into the next ice age. And I remember him talking about acid rain falling, and we'd have no fish in the lakes in Canada. So, hey, weather's weather, and I think we tend to be a little selective in our memories. It's Canada. Right. What else do we talk about, man? Weather.
Well, I love talking about the weather. I do every show if I could about the weather, but the weather and politics, and I guess the politics of the weather. Okay, Daryl, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good to hear from you. Okay, bye-bye. To Dan up next. Hi, Dan. What would you say, Dan? Has winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? If winter's become more mild, what would you say?
You know what? I think that winter has changed quite a bit. I've lived in Calgary all my life. I'm 37 years old. And when I was younger, I remember in April, I used to be able to go out on my birthday and have an Easter egg hunt. And then it was nice and shiny, no snow on the ground, everything's melted. And it seems like now the winter has gone past and gone into the, March, April territory now.
Okay.
So it feels like everything has shifted down. And now I remember my birthday's now in April. That there's a winter storm or something coming, and I know it always happens. So but when I was younger, never used to be the case. It was nice and sunny, no snow on the ground, and now it's not like that anymore.
Yeah. So a couple of callers have brought this up that they feel as though the timing of the seasons is somehow changed. The seasons are starting at different times of the year. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like we still get winter no matter what, but it's shifted over to start later, like it is now.
Starts
February.
later.
It's really cold here in Calgary, and it's just lasting a little longer. Like, we're very fortunate that we have a mild Christmas and New Year, and then all of a sudden February hits and it's just frigid cold, and it makes it really tough to go walk outside, right?
Right. Okay. Well, it is supposed to warm up there by Thursday, and it'll be well above zero. So there is that. You are at least going to have a reprieve from the deep freeze. If you could send it this way, thank you. We'd be most grateful. Okay, Dan, thank you. Thank you for your call.
All right.
Sean is in Cambridge, Ontario. Hello, Sean.
Good morning. Well, I don't know.
Hi,
Afternoon. I don't know about Calgary, but in Southern Ontario, it has really changed. When I was younger, I used to teach skiing at our local ski hill here, Chicopee, and we used to have the hill open by the beginning of December, sometimes end of November, and we would do Christmas camps and stuff. And before I had a catastrophic knee injury that finished that, but by the end of it, we pretty much never managed to even get any Christmas camps anymore. And we were lucky if we could open. We were lucky if we were open by Christmas. A couple times we wouldn't even open by the New Year. It was pretty bad. And I also remember when I was in high school, we had a pond in the middle of Cambridge at a conservation area, and we used to be able to skate on that and play pond hockey on March break. Not a hope you could do that anymore. It's really changed a lot down here. They said maybe the rest of Canada is different, but in Southern Ontario, you really notice the difference.
You really notice the difference. Okay. Thank you, Sean, for calling. I really appreciate your call today. 1-833-668-2577. Join the discussion as we talk about winter weather and how it's changed or not over time. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been asking if the winter weather has changed over the course of your lifetime, and are winters more mild now with less snow than they used to be, or are winters the same as they have always been? I just came across some old headlines in my own archives. 2019, 6 years ago, French CBC, forget the snowy winters of your childhood. That was the head. Forget the snowy winters of your childhood. 2 years ago from the Globe and Mail, is winter as we know it dead? Or another one from the public broadcaster 6 years ago, no more shinny, thousands of lakes losing their winter ice. Or this one from 5 years ago, no more snow days. Or this one from just last year, the outdoor ice rink might not be viable anymore. I don't know. I don't know what to say. We've been told for years, really, that Canadian winters will not be what they used to be. And, I read you that note from Environment Canada about what it said the reality of a Canadian winter is now, as Environment Canada sees it. They employ a lot of smart people there in Environment Canada, watching the weather, studying the data. And it says, Canada, quote, Canada is still the snowiest country, but less snow is falling across the south. White Christmases are less frequent, and frost-free days are increasing, and our growing season is longer. So we're just asking today, does that match up with your own personal lived experience? Have you noticed a change in winters now compared to the winters when you were younger? What would you say? Marty, up next. Hi, Marty.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good, Marty. What would you say?
This is an absolute awesome discussion. I find it extremely interesting. I've been paying very, very close attention to the weather ever since I was very, very young.
Okay.
I'm close to 60 right now, and just in southern Alberta, just south of Calgary. And I when I was a kid, I remember, like you were just talking about there, like forget about the snowy winters when you were a kid. I was just like, exactly. So when I was a kid, I lived for going out to my cousin's place and going snowmobiling till all hours of the wee morning and having all this snow throughout the 70s and just had a ball. And I was, living in the south end edge of Calgary, the very south edge of Calgary towards DeWinton there. And I would be phoning my aunt up all the time, like, is there snow? Is there snow? Like, so we got all through the 70s, and it was just a great time on the snowmobiles. And then something very incredible happened. Mount St. Helens erupted in 1980.
Okay.
And throughout the entire decade of the 1980s, there was no snow, not enough for snowmobiling in southern Alberta. And I was a teenager, and I was so choked, and everybody I knew was their snowmobiles were high and dry for an entire decade. And there was just no snow, and I'd be calling my aunt all the time. You got any snow? Is there enough snow? No, there's no snow. There's no snow. And I was just, oh, man. And so I watched the driest, I couldn't believe it. It went from 3 feet of snow throughout the winter on the ground all decade of the 1970s to no snow on the ground for the entire decade of the 80s. And then right up until around the mid-90s. And then we started getting a whole lot more snow again.
Okay.
And all in all, my synopsis of the entire thing is our winters are much milder now.
Okay.
With
okay.
less snow. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm just listening to you because you're kind of backing up what this Environment Canada statement says,
It actually sounded right, exactly bang on with what I had experienced. And I don't pay attention to Environment Canada per se.
Right.
But I go because I live, I've lived in the wilderness my whole life doing all kinds of wilderness activities from here to the coast. And I can tell you weather systems from the Pacific Ocean up and down Canada coast from my own personal experience, kayaking the west coast of Canada extensively for, a decade of my life and living in southern Alberta. And it's just like lots has changed, and absolutely it's windier. Never seen the winds. And I'll tell you one thing else we never used to get were minus 40s and plus 40s ever. Never occurred.
Okay.
So
those extreme temperatures. Okay. Yeah.
Extreme temperature swings and the wind. And, and I started noticing more precipitation on, like as far as rain and snow in the last 10 years, especially in Calgary. But I don't know. It's like, it just seems like I just remember thinking like, we're getting wetter. Like, I think it's getting wetter.
Well, that's what they say. It was happening. It's getting warmer and it's getting wetter. Okay. Look, Marty, got to run. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Very interesting call. Thank you so much. Great memories there. Don, just hang on the line, Don. I have to stop here and then we'll get you on as we wind this Tuesday edition of Talkback down. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been talking about the weather and winter weather and asking, in your opinion, has the winter weather changed over the course of your lifetime? What would you say? Are winters more mild now, less snow? Or are winters more or less the same than they've always been? What would you say? Let's go to Dawn in Calgary. Thanks for waiting there, Dawn. You're up next. Hi there.
Hi, Rob.
Hi,
thanks for having me today.
You're welcome.
Great discussion today.
Yes,
it's nice not to be talking about the usual TNT that we're always talking about and talk about weather for once. And
yes.
Being in Alberta near Calgary, 50 years of my life here. My birthday is May long weekend, so it's always a good landmark to kind of monitor weather and change.
Yeah.
And a lot of the callers today, they talk about the shifting of the weather patterns and stuff like that. And I agree with them. It seems like a lot of the weather is coming later, and I'm wondering if it's, the Earth was here before us, and the universe and Mother Nature, and we put a clock on that. We put a calendar on the Earth. We did that to the Earth. The Earth was here first, and I'm wondering if it's our calendar that's off, not the weather that's off. And I know it's a little bit of a different way to look at it, but I don't see a huge change in the weather. Weather is always changing. Climate change is real. It's always been for sure. There's not two things that are for sure in this world. It's three things. It's death, taxes, and climate change. The world has always been changing.
Right. But the big finding, I guess, or the big theme from, say, Environment Canada, for example, is that winters, especially in the southern parts of Canada, are more mild now, and there's not as much snow anymore. Has that been your experience?
It's hit and miss. I have a half-mile long driveway, so I can tell you how many times I have to plow out my driveway in a year, and it comes and goes, in 3-4 year patterns. And yeah, we get dumps of snow that early in the year, late in the year, we get wind that blows it away. We're in the foothills, we're right against the mountains. We're always seeing different weather here, and we always have. And we all have memories of our childhood. Well, we remember things a lot differently. Things were bigger when we were children than they are today.
Yeah, sure enough. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, great point. Great call, Don. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Love your show.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I really appreciated this conversation today. It's a conversation I've had with my own father, who says he's noticed a change, a man in his mid to late 70s now, and he tells me about the winters of his youth and the winters that he experiences now. And he says, without a doubt, winter weather has changed. More mild, not as much snow. And, one example that he often cites is that he and all of his friends used to play pond hockey, which has come up from time to time, and how there was a pond in the north end of his town that froze over every winter. And they would, as teenagers, they would be playing pond hockey morning, noon, and night for months on end all winter. That pond froze over in December and stayed that way all winter. And now he says it doesn't freeze over at all. And he can't remember anyone ever playing pond hockey on that pond in recent years. That's in Atlantic Canada. And I can remember growing up there, and there would be ice in the harbor, lots of ice in the harbor. And the wind would blow off the water and it would just cut straight through you. And now I'm told that there's almost never ice in the harbor anymore. Not the way there used to be. Anyway, not with the same frequency. And what was a normal winter sight is now a rarity. Now, that being said, about 2 weeks ago was the anniversary of the Snowmageddon for Cape Breton Island, and Sydney, Nova Scotia was buried under 150 centimeters of snow. Here where I live, we just got 70 in the last 4 days, and I'm running out of places to put it. And in Montreal, they say it could take 8 days to clean it all up. So I can't imagine getting 70 centimeters of snow and then getting another 80. My goodness, that must have been wild. Just a reminder, I guess, we still do get winter in this country from time to time. Thank you for all your calls. We're back with Talkback tomorrow. Hope you'll join us then. Call and offer an opinion on the big topics of the day. I'm Rob Snow with David Smith. This is News Radio.